Hi, it's Leslie from Leslie's Cookies and Treats, and this is my favorite cookie of all time. So join me in this long tutorial as I decorate this cookie and explain everything in detail. So I'm starting with my darker brown flood consistency royal icing. All of my icing is about a 20-second consistency for this cookie. There's a lot of small areas that I don't want to crater, so I'm going to outline, flood them, and over flood them so that hopefully it will not crater. Because I'm over flooding it, I want the icing to be a little bit thicker. And because the icing is a little bit thicker, I am going to need to use my Scribe to settle the icing down. I also like to use my Scribe to get the icing out to the edges and to shape it how I need it. So for the details of this cookie, I'm going to be working from the back to the front so that things that are farther back will not be as puffy as things that are in the front of the cookie. And that is the approach I take for every cookie I do. And I'm not going to speed up this video. I'm going to show you everything in real time so that you can see exactly what's involved with decorating a sugar cookie like this. And I'm going to teach you a couple of different techniques that I don't usually cover in my videos, such as some dimensional piping, and we'll do some wet on wet and some other things. So I'm continuing to outline and flood in areas with the darker brown icing, and I'm not doing any areas that are touching each other because I want to create some separation between my areas of royal icing. So I'm going to flood them and let them dry before I pipe in any icing in the areas that are touching. So now I'm going to move on to his hat. I'm going to outline and flood in with a green royal icing consistency. And when you're outlining an area, you want to lift your piping bag up just slightly off of your cookie and then touch down at the corners where you change direction. And you want to watch the line of icing that you're placing on the cookie and not watch your piping bag. That will really help you place your icing in the correct place. And again, I'm slightly overfilling all of these sections because they're small and I really don't want them to crater. And then I'm going to use my Scribe to distribute the icing out to all of the points and make sure that everything is evenly covered, and I pop any air bubbles or get rid of any peaks in my icing. So now I'm going to grab the lighter brown icing, and my feet have had a chance to crust over so that the icing will not blend together when I pipe in my cute little bear's belly here. And so I'm using my lighter colored icing, and again I'm just going to outline and flood it in. I'm going to slightly overfill it like I've been doing with all of the other sections. And I apologize if the audio is all wonky. I have a whole bunch of work trucks that just showed up outside, and they are very loud. I've got cement trucks and dump trucks, and I don't know what the neighbors are doing, but it's going to be awesome, I'm sure. So anyway, back to the cookie. So as you're flooding in these areas, if you're going to over flood them like I've been doing, you really want to make sure that your icing is about a 20-second flood consistency, because you don't want to overfill them and then have it go outside of its boundaries or outside of the outline. And after your bear's belly has had it some time to set up, maybe about 20 or 30 minutes, I'm going to go back and fill in the top part of his foot. And I'm really going to overflow this area because I want it to be raised and be in front of the bottom part of his foot. So it looks like his little toes are kind of going to be curling over a little bit. So I'm going to go ahead and flood that in, overfill it. Again, I'm using my Scribe to kind of shape the icing and help it settle down. And I'm going to let that set up for a little bit, but not fully crust over. And then I'm going to come back in and add some more icing to that section to do some dimensional piping. And I'm going to do the same thing over here on his other foot. And I didn't outline this section, but my icing is stiffer, about a 20-second consistency, so I really don't need to outline it first, just to flood in this small area. To do the dimensional piping, you're really going to want your icing to be a stiffer consistency, at least a 20-second consistency, so I would not recommend doing this with a really thin 10-second flood, because it will not hold its shape and it will end up overflowing the area that you're trying to fill, and it just won't work. So I'm going to do the same thing and go ahead and flood in the bottom part of his face, and we'll overfill this area also and come back and add some dimension. I had a little bit of a clog on the tip of my icing there, so I don't know if you noticed, I pulled my bag away and I pinched the tip and squeezed out the clog, and now I can go back and finish piping. And as always, I'm going to take my Scribe and I'm going to pop any air bubbles and gently poke at it to settle the icing down. Now here's where I told you I was going to go back and overfill this area. I am sticking my piping bag right into the wet icing, and then I'm going to squeeze a big amount in just one spot and fill that area up, and then take my Scribe and kind of help settle it back down. And I'm only doing this in the areas where I want it to be really puffy. So if I don't want it to be super puffy all the way out to the corners, then I'm not going to do that there. So while we wait for the bottom part of the face to set up a little bit more, let's go ahead and pipe in the hat band. I'm using a rusty kind of orange color, again in about a 20-second consistency. And I'm just going to pipe in a band for the hat and then use my Scribe to bring the icing out to the edges, give it a sharp point at the corners. And I know that this seems time consuming, and not every cookie takes this much time, but it's really rewarding when you pay attention to detail and you get a really excellent cookie when you're finished. And as I said, I was going to go back and stick my piping bag right into the face and add some more icing into the middle so it's puffy and it sticks out over the top part where we're going to put his eyes. And because my icing is still wet and hasn't fully set up, I can kind of just poke at it gently with my Scribe to get it to settle down and blend together. And I don't know if you can see how much extra icing I've added here, but there's actually quite a bit more than on the top part, and it's really made quite a bit more puff. Maybe you can see it a little better at the feet than you can at the face. So I've let that dry for about 30 minutes, and now I'm going to go back in and I'm going to add in the bottom part of the arm over here. And again, I'll use my Scribe to bring the icing up to the corner here and to kind of shape it into these small little areas. And now I'm going to pipe in the other arm. I'm going to kind of avoid where I have that little line for his hand. It will sort of blend in and fill in together as it settles in, but then I'm going to go back in and do some dimensional piping and make the hand really puff out and be sticking out from his arm. I'm also going to bring the hand a little bit over the bottom part of the face so it's kind of up and raised over the face a little bit. So I'm going to need to put a lot of icing in that area. And while I wait for that to set up, I'm going to go ahead and pipe in the right side of his face over here. You know, I think we need to give this bear a name. Do you have any good ideas for a name for this lucky bear? Let me know. And as always, I'm going to use my Scribe to shape the icing and get it down into the point over here. And while we wait for all of that to dry, let's go ahead and start working on our shamrock. So I'm going to just outline one of the heart sections and flood that in with the green royal icing. Again, it's about a 20-second consistency. And you can see as I'm piping this heart leaf of the shamrock that I'm wiggling my piping bag and kind of bouncing it up and down. And because the icing is a thicker 20-second consistency, if you jiggle your icing as you're piping it, it kind of helps it settle down and you'll spend less time with your Scribe getting the icing to be smooth. And then I will take my lighter green icing and put a heart right in the center just to give my shamrock some color differentiation and make it fun. And this is a wet on wet technique, so we're putting the light green icing right into the wet dark green icing. And again, I'll use my Scribe to kind of settle it down because it is a thicker 20-second consistency. But I'm going to just gently tap at it because I don't want to smear it together with the dark green icing. And as I mentioned earlier, I'm going to overflow this hand by sticking my piping bag right back into the hand and adding a whole lot more icing. This is a dimensional piping technique so that this front part of the hand will stick up and be raised over the back part of the hand. but it's still a solid piece of icing. There's no separation between the two parts of his arm. The front part of his hand is just raised and puffier than the back part of his arm. It's not two separate sections. And then I'm using a dampened paintbrush that I've wiped off almost all of the water onto a paper towel to kind of shape this area a little bit and move it into the shape that I want, so it's not like having a jagged edge over the front of the face. And then I let that dry for about 20 or 30 minutes before now coming back in and piping in the other hand. Let's move on to the ear. I'm going to use a wet on wet effect for this ear and take my dark brown icing and pipe the center of the ear right into that lighter brown icing, and then as it dries it will be one solid section or surface instead of having a line of separation between the two colors. And now I'm going to move on to the hat. I'm going to pipe in the bottom part of the hat. I want that to be behind the shamrock, so I'm going to pipe that before I pipe any more of the shamrock leaves. And I'm going to overfill this area also because I want it to be over the front of the head, or over the front of the face rather. So I'm going to pipe it in, and then I'm going to let it set up a little bit, and then I'm going to come in and fill it in with some more icing. And as always, I need to use my Scribe to settle the icing down and kind of make it smooth. And while I'm waiting for that to set up, I'm going to come over here and carefully pipe in this heart leaf. I am going to try really hard not to make it touch the hat brim because I don't want it to look like it's connected. And like I did with the other leaf, I'm going to come in with my light green icing and pipe a dot right in the green icing and drag it down, and do the same thing on the other side to make a little heart. And then I will take my my Scribe and kind of poke at it gently to settle it down. Again, I don't want to really stir it together, so I'm just going to gently poke at it. And so when the leaves dry, it will be a solid section. There won't be any definition between the light and the dark green. And now I'm going to come back in with the dark green icing and put it right inside the icing I previously did. So poke your bag right into that icing. And then I'm going to add some more to make the hat brim a little puffier on this side. And I'm going to use my Scribe kind of to poke at it and get it to all blend together and settle down. And it's finally time to start bringing this cute little bear to life. Has anyone come up with a name yet? Anyway, I'm using my black icing, and I'm going to pipe him a nose. I have a clog in my tip, so I'm going to pinch the tip until I can get that clog out. And then I'm going to just really overfill this nose so that it hopefully does not crater. For some reason, little tiny areas have a tendency to crater. And then just two little dots for eyes. And I'm going to use my Scribe to kind of distribute the icing and shape it into the triangle shape that I was looking for. He's getting so cute already. I don't know. Let's see. Lucky Leroy? Benji? We really need to come up with a name for this cutie. Anyway, back to decorating. So I'm going to go ahead and do the other shamrock leaf, and I'll follow the same process using the light green to add a wet on wet heart right in the middle. And I don't know if you realize this, but I have a newsletter that you can sign up for where I will share even more tips and tricks, some occasional freebies, recipes, 3D print files to make your own cookie cutters that you can use if you have a 3D printer at home, transfer sheets, all kinds of information, tips and tricks. So if you're interested in signing up for that, there's a link in my bio, and I'll leave a link in the description. I also usually will have all of the supplies listed in the description, as well as links to the products I've used in case you want to check those out. I don't get any affiliation with any of these products for recommending them. They're just what I use and what I like. So I don't earn any compensation from the links that I provide to you. Anyway, just finishing up this shamrock. Put your light green icing right back into the dark green icing and pipe your heart. And then we can use our scribe to settle the icing down by gently poking at it in an up and down motion until the icing blends together. You don't want to poke too deep because you don't want to pull up any of that dark green icing. And using some yellow icing in about a 15-second consistency, it really probably should have been stiffer. I'm going to add in a little belt buckle to his hat brim. And then I'm going to add in the stem from my shamrock using the green icing. Just go slow and watch where your icing is falling, not where your piping bag is going. So you want to touch down to start your line and then lift up, and you can drag your icing across. It should be up in the air a little bit, and gently set it down where you want it to go. And I don't quite like how this little end ended up over the hands. I want it to kind of look like it's going through the hands, but I'm going to use a very slightly dampened paintbrush to kind of push it down into the area. And anyway, Frederick here is done. So you can leave your bear like this, or let him dry completely and you could paint in some details, or you can watch part 2 where I really bring him to life. Thanks for watching. Let me know what name you think we should give him in the comments.